$1,700 in Chinese chemicals. One hidden Mexican lab. The result, roughly $1.2 million on American streets, a 99% profit margin on a product killing over 100,000 Americans every year. This is Mexico's fentanyl economy. Cartel leadership takes home billions. The workers cooking that product earn as little as $150 per kilogram. Many trapped in debt bondage they will never escape. In an economy built on death, who actually profits? That answer begins with a calculated decision two cartels made between 2013 and 2015, one that would reshape the drug trade forever. Inside the Sinaloa cartel and the Jalisco New Generation cartel, the years 2013 to 2015 brought a cold calculation. Internal directives circulated among senior leadership, some scrawled in code, others encrypted and relayed through trusted lieutenants, ordering a historic reallocation of resources. The message was clear: step away from heroin and marijuana and double down on synthetic opioids. DEA records from this period reference intercepted communications and seized ledgers, each bearing the same date range. In 2014, a single 10.7 kilogram fentanyl seizure at the United States border sent shockwaves through United States law enforcement. But for cartel planners, it was proof that their experiment could scale. What drove this shift? United States doctors had begun prescribing fewer opioids, drying up a once reliable market for painkillers. At the same time, Chinese chemical brokers offered a new opportunity. Bulk shipments of N-phenethyl-4, piperidinone, and 4-ser-ANP-P, the building blocks of fentanyl, could be bought for less than $1,200 per kilogram. Cartel executives, some of whom had backgrounds in legitimate business, studied the numbers. A kilogram of pure fentanyl, costing less than $2,000 to produce, could be pressed into counterfeit pills and sold in the United States for over $1 million. The profit margin dwarfed anything seen in the era of plant-based drugs. Meeting in safe houses and ranches across Sinaloa and Jalisco, cartel councils issued executive orders. Production would move to smaller, more concealable labs scattered across rural valleys and urban warehouses. Procurement teams were dispatched to negotiate directly with Chinese suppliers. Shell companies sprang up in Mexico City and Guadalajara, their only purpose to import chemicals under the guise of industrial use. The Sinaloa cartel's Chapitos faction, led by the sons of Joaquin Guzman, championed a decentralized approach, with many microlabs, each hidden in plain sight. CJNG, meanwhile, invested in till press machines and centralized high-volume facilities, betting on speed and automation. DEA threat assessments from 2015 cite a coordinated pivot to synthetic opioids in both organizations, referencing internal memos that ordered the construction of dedicated fentanyl labs and the hiring of chemists with backgrounds in pharmaceutical synthesis. The move was not without risk. Cartel leadership understood that a product 100 times more potent than heroin would invite new scrutiny from both Mexican and United States authorities. But the potential rewards, billions in revenue, and near total control over the most lucrative drug market in the hemisphere, outweighed the dangers. By the end of 2015, both cartels had completed the transition. Seizure data from United States Customs and Mexican law enforcement show a measurable uptick in synthetic opioid interceptions. But these numbers only hint at the true scale of production. For every kilogram seized, dozens moved undetected. The decision window had closed. The Mexican drug economy was now built on a foundation of synthetic death, and the profits concentrated at the very top would reshape the power dynamics of the entire region. Who gave the orders? Who signed off on the risk? And who ultimately would bear the cost? Families in the United States, workers in Mexico, or the executives orchestrating it all from the shadows? These questions linger over every ledger, every intercepted message, every overdose that would follow. A kilogram of heroin requires months of tending poppy fields, armies of pickers, and the constant threat of crop eradication. Fentanyl, by contrast, begins as a list of industrial chemicals: N-phenethyl-4, piperidinone, and 4-ANPP, ordered in bulk from Chinese brokers for less than $1,200 a kilo. For cartel planners, the math is irresistible. Fentanyl is up to 50 times stronger than heroin by weight. That means a single kilogram, easily concealed in a backpack or a small parcel, can be diluted or pressed into hundreds of thousands of counterfeit pills. Each pill, often disguised as legitimate medication, carries a lethal risk and a profit margin that dwarfs anything seen in the era of plant-based drugs. This is the logic of potency per gram economics, where a truckload of marijuana or a bale of cocaine draws the attention of border agents and demands elaborate smuggling operations. A handful of fentanyl powder can slip through customs inside a package labeled as machine parts or research chemicals. The smaller the shipment, the lower the shipping costs, the greater the concealment, and the higher the profit. Cartel procurement teams saw that the risk of interception plummeted, even as the value of each shipment soared. According to DEA estimates, a kilogram of pure fentanyl, produced in Mexico for under $2,000, can generate over $1 million in U.S. street sales. The ratio is staggering. Less than 0.2% of the street price is spent on raw inputs. Plant-based drugs tie profits to geography. Fields can be burned, harvests can fail, and weather can ruin a season's work. Synthetic fentanyl breaks that link. Production moves indoors, into rented warehouses or rural sheds, where a few workers with basic training can turn out batch after batch, day after day. The cartels no longer depend on the rhythms of the land. Instead, they rely on global supply chains, shell companies, and the willingness of chemical exporters to look the other way. The Sinaloa cartel and CJNG did not just chase higher profits. They built a system designed to outpace law enforcement at every turn. With this model, the stakes for both sides changed. For every kilogram seized, dozens more crossed the border undetected. For every lab raided, another sprang up nearby. The economics of fentanyl favored those willing to scale quickly, exploit regulatory loopholes, and distribute risk across countless microlabs and couriers. The result was an avalanche of synthetic opioids flooding the United States, with overdose deaths rising year after year. Behind every shipment, every pill, every overdose, the question hangs in the air: who actually profits from this machinery of death? And can any intervention disrupt a trade that rewards efficiency, secrecy, and ruthless calculation? The next link in the chain is chemical: how these cheap, potent precursors move from Chinese factories to Mexican ports, and how the supply chain itself has become a battleground for profit and power. But the economic logic remains the same: maximize return, minimize exposure, and let the human cost fall where it may. Cargo ships leave the industrial coastlines of Yunnan and Guangdong, loaded with containers that rarely draw suspicion. On paper, they carry machine parts, solvents, or agricultural supplies, and each shipment is documented with false, harmonized system codes and invoices that pass through customs with little resistance. In reality, these containers carry the chemical building blocks of fentanyl, labeled destined for Mexican ports thousands of miles away. Inside the factories, production lines run day and night to meet orders from brokers who operate behind layers of shell companies. These brokers are based in China and often use Hong Kong as a financial buffer, and they specialize in moving chemicals under the radar. They pay for expedited shipping, arrange freight forwarders who know how to blend illicit precursors with legitimate cargo, and exploit regulatory loopholes that allow chemicals to be exported as industrial inputs. Export license exemptions and false end-user declarations are routine, creating a paperwork trail that leads nowhere. The journey across the Pacific is rarely direct. Containers may be transshipped through Singapore or Panama, further muddying the trail. By the time they reach the Mexican Pacific coast, the paperwork lists a Mexican importer registered to a nondescript office in Mexico City or Guadalajara.